So I talked about this a few days ago on Twitter. I actually just dropped the clip because I thought it was a very good example of people localizing something from Japan and making changes because they don't agree with the content, which I'm very against. That's not your job to change things that you don't think are appropriate. Your job is to just translate it and bring it over here. But we'll get to that. It was just nice to have such a great example of censorship of Japanese stuff. We only get them admit to it so often. And I didn't quite care for it. So with this company, Nippon Ichi Software America, we're just going to call them NISA for short, they've issued a statement in response because I know at least the tweet I put out got a lot of views on it. A lot of people were talking about it because they don't like it either. You know, they're a little bit more open in Japan and not so butthurt when it comes to jokes and stuff like that. And there's a lot of fan service, but we don't get that stuff in America because everything, needs to be dialed down and a little bit more sensitive for people because people are butthurt about everything. So the stream that was going on is they were showing a build for the Switch version of the Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 3. It's also coming to PC soon. It's already out on PS4, been out for a minute. Actually has pretty good reviews from when I looked at it, but it's a smaller game. I think a lot of people probably won't even know that it exists. My problem is it's not their job to change things based on what they think is culturally appropriate. The words that they used were things that don't line up with our values, basically. So we have a transcript here. I'm going to go over that because it's a little safer. You know how these people are. They like to claim things, especially critical stuff. So you could see them coming in and saying, oh, we're just going to take the video down. It's a little harder to do when you just read the transcript. So here's what was said. So at the 1 hour mark, they were asked how often they run into jokes that did not work in English and how they reworked them. Both responded it happens all the time due to Japanese puns and how Mort was slowly learning how to say things to make people cringe in Japanese. So Mort is the editor of the game, and he was giving that response. That's a little bit more tricky. So a lot of the times, some stuff doesn't directly translate into English. So in cases like that, I understand a little bit of liberty. You kind of do the best you can if it doesn't translate to English. However, it's the next part. That's the next part that I don't like. So when they explain how localization for them involved considering what culture they were translating the game to, they said, and I quote, "It's hard, but that is part of localization because whether or not it's a joke, a little bit of a space, we have to make sure that all the text makes sense, not just in the language, but in the culture that we're translating to." They go on to explain that if we have different values than them, so they further explain this and say, so things we try to kind of work around, things that might be a little sexist, for example, in Japanese humor. And with those things, we try to make it more culturally appropriate for our players. And then they go on to state, and that doesn't mean it's going to be less funny. Sometimes we can work something in even better sometimes.
What a story, Mark.
Oh, I'm sure that your woke humor is going to be much better. So this is a really good example. And, I'll link this in the description, which has links to what they said. You can go hear it for yourself. Okay, so I think this is ridiculous. So now we have them admitting, and we already knew this, so this isn't very new news, right? We knew they were kind of doing this. It's just the point that they're coming out and saying and admitting that they're doing it and making it like it's not that big of a deal. Okay, that's not your job to make the things that you consider offensive culturally appropriate. You need to just bring it over here as was intended when they made it. Now, I get puns and stuff that doesn't translate into English at all. That I get. But when you're going and changing stuff that you find offensive, that I think is an insult to the original developers and their vision and to the fans. I'm pretty sure everyone's a grown boy and girl and they can take care of themselves and handle a little bit of an offensive joke. But you know how these people are? It's disrespectful to women to do that. That's why it's a little bit sexist. So I'm sure their woke jokes are so much better than what we were originally given. I'm sure. So they go on to talk about some kind of changes they made to a Trails game. I don't know what they're talking about because I never played these games, but something to do with speech bubbles and memes. This caused some stirring in the community. It says the comments caused outrage among fans and gamers who are concerned with censorship and inaccurate localization. Some expressed their desire to enjoy a Japanese game with Japanese culture with direct translation as possible. Others were concerned that attempting to make things culturally appropriate to many different people across different cultures would be impossible. Some felt this was merely an excuse to censor the game for other reasons. I would say that they're quite woke reasons. Now, here's the big thing. They did come out and actually give a statement, which I'm kind of surprised to see. And they said to Operation Rainfall, NIS America does not engage in censorship or overzealous editing. We stand by our dedication to the authenticity of our localization efforts to properly contextualize a title within a localized framework for an English-speaking audience. Now, this doesn't appear to be true, though, given their past. There's stuff going back to 2010, talking about big changes they've made to games that line right up with that lady and what she said of how they change things that aren't culturally appropriate. We can go down to this game down here, Criminal Girls Invitation. Censored the punishment time minigame, which has pink fog for every level of every minigame, never goes away. Japanese version, the pink fog goes away on later levels. Removed the voices for the punishment minigames. Shoddy translation. Changed punishment time to motivation time for the punishment video game. And made the dialogue less lewd. There's actually an entire little archive here of all the changes they made. Seems like there's a lot of game crashing too with their stuff, but that's not really what I'm concerned about. I'm more looking at the censorship of things they consider lewd or not culturally appropriate. And there's a lot on here. A lot. Here's another really good example of that, of the same game. So Legend of Heroes, Trails of Cold Steel 3, Juna Bikini DLC absent in the West. So you can see here there's one of the characters. She's just in a swimsuit. This apparently was not brought over here, which I find kind of funny. Is available in Japan and Hong Kong, but not in the US or the UK. They apparently try to blame this on Sony, but I don't think that that's true. I don't think that it's a big deal for the characters to be in a bikini. Given the company's history, I'd say it's likely that they just didn't want to bring it over here because, well, what does this girl wearing a bikini have to do with the plot? This is not appropriate. This is objectification. Please, we cannot have that in our game. Now, this is speculation. They've denied this fact, but I would say given what we just heard from the Project Overlord, that, they change things that are a little culturally inappropriate, I don't think it's far-fetched to consider them not bringing stuff like this to the game because they don't like it. And they said around, we can't bring that DLC because it's objectifying that character. We can't have that. We cannot have that. Male gaze, no waifus. So, it's not your job to be a champion of justice and change things. People just want good translations. Okay, they should just bring the game over for what it is and translate it as best as possible. Not change things because you find them offensive. Like I said, that's not your job. Your job is to just translate. But I wonder if these companies even know, if they even care. I don't know. They have to know on some level. The fact that, DLC of a character in a bikini didn't get brought over here kind of says something. Kind of lines up with the values that Project Overlord seems to have. So I just think this is stupid. And the only way that we're going to get stuff that we should actually be getting, which is a good translation, is to shine light on it and say, hey, this isn't what we want. Stop trying to be our parents. Give us the games as intended. I mean, that's my 2 cents on it. But anyway, they don't seem to care. So in turn, I'll just not buy your game. That's how I'll care. I just won't pay for your game, and we'll leave it at that. I'm not interested in your woke version of this game. So no thanks. No thank you. Anyway, that is pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think about all this stuff. Have you played this game? Did you care for it? Is it any good? What do you think about them admitting that they're making these changes? I'd like to hear what you guys have to say about it. Also, throw a like up. Remember, likes and comments really help videos in the algorithm, so please consider leaving those. Also, share the video. Helps get the word out on this stuff. And make sure you're still subscribed. Subscribe if you're new. Hit that notification bell. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace. Also, if you want to help support the channel, check out my Teespring store. There's a link in the description. You can find some merchandise in there that you might want to check out. Also, take a moment. Make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. There's something going on right now, and they've been unsubscribing people. So just take a second and double check on that, and subscribe if you're new.